Hi, my name is Heather McGowan. I'm going to talk to you about how machines will replace humans in the future of work. All right, let's talk about some questions we'll answer. What jobs already have been lost to technology? Does the speed of change and the speed in which we're adopting technologies tell us a signal of anything to come? And what can we learn from the ATM? By the end of this talk, you'll understand that 100% of work is going to change from fixed jobs to workflows. Let's talk about what jobs have actually been lost to technology. Here's the spoiler, not that many. The elevator operator is actually one hotel I go to in Boulder that still has one, but they're really rare. You can count like 5 of them probably in the US. Telephone switchboard operator, the movie projectionist, they still exist, but far fewer of them. The human computer and calculator, those pictures of usually women with long cords and things that they're plugging in, not unlike the telephone switchboard operator. And the typing pool. Let's talk about the whiplash scale in speed. How many months it took certain products and services that we use to reach 100 million users. It took Netflix 10 years, and 10 years since it went into streaming in 2007. It took Google and Airbnb 100 months. Uber did that in about 65 months. The iPhone did that in about 3 years. Facebook did that in just over 2 years. Instagram then did that in about 2.5 years. And ChatGPT did that in a couple of months. And if you look at this visual, most of the ones that took multiple years were more than a decade ago. All the things in the last 3 or 4 years have done it in a handful of months. Now let's compare that to other technologies in our life. How long did it take landlines to reach 100 million users? It took 70 years. It took automobiles 45 years. It took electrification 35 years. Now there's some practicality to this. Those lines had to be laid in order for the houses to be connected. So you got to factor that in. The first cell phone took 15 years. Now what can we learn from ATMs? When ATMs first came out, and I think the first one was like 1967, but the first times that most of us used were in like kind of the 80s and 90s. When the first ATMs came out, there was this, oh my God, the bank teller's going to go away. That isn't what happened at all. From 1980 to 2010, we went from 300,000 to 500,000 bank tellers. So it actually exploded the number of bank tellers. That might seem counterintuitive. There was a role shift. It was a greater relational services. So now the bank could offer more services. They could offer more locations. The banker tellers weren't counting money anymore, or rarely. The change in bank locations went from somewhere around 50,000 locations to about 100,000 locations. So they didn't move as quickly as the bank tellers, but there was actually an increase in bank locations as well. This all was until about 2010. It was lower cost per, so they created more branches because they could put more branches closer to you, so you're more likely to go in it, but you got more services. So it went from just the bank holding your money to the bank holding your mortgage, and then the bank doing community lending, et cetera. So the bank could offer more services and have those bank tellers get to higher order skills than just counting money. They extended hours, they had more services. But since then, we've seen a slight decline in bank locations. You see some consolidation, and some of that's happening post-global financial crisis with the consolidation in banks themselves. We've actually seen a pretty marked decline in bank tellers, and the reasons for that is now we have interactive tellers. I don't know if you've gone to your ATM and someone can pop up on a screen. That person's sitting somewhere, they may be sitting in their home, they may be sitting in a location, and they may be servicing people all across a huge geographic area. So the global financial crisis created consolidation, that decreased the number of banks, and an increase in people using their phone to deposit checks and et cetera, transfer money. So more online banking, whether it be on their phone or on their laptop, led to a decrease in the number of branches and a marked decrease in the number of bank tellers. Now let's look at robotics in manufacturing. If you look at this Tesla factory, which might be an interesting visual to look at, you can clearly see there are fewer humans assembling each car. So what is this going to do? What is the introduction of robotics into the workplace going to do for human work? There's a decline in low-skilled jobs, anything with repetitive movement. Because a machine can do that, robotics can do that. There's a rise in roles that have flexibility, adaptability, and problem solving. And there are more jobs in the adjacencies, the people who are building the robots, the people who are planning the factory. So outside the factory, there's much more human work. Inside the factory, huge decline in human work. Now let's look at robotics in warehouses. There's fewer humans per unit. So by the time you get your package, say from Amazon, where it used to pass through maybe a couple of human hands, now it probably passes through just the person who dropped it at your door. Because Amazon has something like 1 million of these, and you can see it in this visual, robotics picking and packing in the factory. For humans, there's a decline in that walk, lift, pick, and pack. There's a rise in technicians, supervisors, safety, and coordination. This overall slower growth, the automotive industry has more happening outside the factory. This is reducing the overall human labor in warehousing. Now let's look at tasks outsourced to technology. Tasks themselves entirely outsourced to technology. Mostly this is knowledge work. As I've said in some of my other talks, tasks that have been atomized, that means it can be broken off from the job, done outside the job container, brought back into the workflow. Those atomized tasks are always going to go to the lowest cost provider. So whether it's somebody in a different part of the world or it's a piece of technology, a task will always chase the lowest cost provider for the greatest efficiency. We'll start to see some of those atomized tasks consumed by technology. And the human has to focus on the higher order work. Specifically, humans have to focus on orchestrating the work, framing the work that needs to be done, supervising it, checking the quality of it, having judgment on the quality of what's been done. Now, let's look at relative changes to tasks. David Denning's research at Harvard, and he did this paper came out in 2017, and it was based on research looking back to 1980. While we've been lunging at STEM skills, and while I do think technology is incredibly important, we've been neglecting social skills. And Denning's research shows that we do that at our peril. Because when you look at work that's high math and low social, high math, high social, low math, high social, low math, low social, the changes in those jobs since 1980 is very clear. Of course, the high math and high social skills have been increasing since 1980, but so have the high social and low math skills. The low math and low social skills are, of course, the greatest decline, but next to that, it's the high math and low social skills. And his recent research has found this to be even true since 2000. So he looks at 25-year chunks generally. Since 2000, the economic returns on strictly cognitive skills, like those high math skills, have been on the decline for the past 25 years. While we see lower enrollment in higher education because of our demographics here in the US, there's an increasing demand for people with college-educated or equivalent skills. And the only returns, the greatest returns since 2000 have been on those non-cognitive skills, those high social skills. And if you look at this graphic, which I think is also increasingly telling, people who fared well in the labor market from the 1980s to the early 2020s were people with high social skills, even people with high social skills and low math skills, as a share of employment and an increase in wages. So to summarize, will machines replace humans in the future work? Yes. Yeah, they will. The reality is a task is always going to chase the lowest cost provider. We're always going to be in the pursuit of efficiency. But it doesn't mean that humans are going to be replaced by technology. Humans have to just adapt to what they do. Tasks will be replaced, not jobs. Jobs will be redesigned from fixed jobs to workflows. 100% of today's jobs will change. We're going to have to shift. Humans are going to have to be better at adaptation and chasing those higher order skills, particularly the social skills. And we're going to see a real transformation from fixed jobs to workflows that constantly reconfigure. And in this world, the human is ultimately responsible. Now, if this was helpful to you, I want you to click the link below and go to my website, heathermcgowan.com/gift, and where I'll give you the introduction in the first chapter of my book, The Adaptation Advantage, which covers many of the ideas. Thank you. My name is Heather McGowan.